Hey guys, Miguel here. Today I want to show you an update that has been made to the Apigee-go-gen tool. So the Apigee-go-gen tool has had support for generating API mocks for some time already, but it was not always the greatest in terms of the quality of the responses that get generated. What I mean by that is that when you would generate a mock, the responses were still uh, structurally valid responses because they were either based on the examples that you provided in the OpenAPI description or based on the structure of the schema that you provided. But the actual data in there, for example, if it was generated based on the schema, it was actually random/FOST data, which was not very meaningful. It was still valid, but not meaningful. So what has changed is that I have added support now for the responses to be generated by an LLM. In this case, it was Google's Gemini model. So there's two ways that this can work. You can either use the private Vertex endpoint in a Google Cloud project that you have, and you can pass it in like this. You say, all right, so I want to do a generate from this OpenAPI description, and I want to use this project for accessing the Vertex endpoint to talk to the Gemini LLM. The other option is you can use the public Gemini endpoint, and in that case, all you have to do is you just provide an API key for calling the Gemini endpoint. In both cases, you can always specify what model you want to use. By default, it's set to Gemini 2.5 Flash. All right, so enough of this. So what I want to demo today for you is that I'm going to go to Gemini and we're going to ask it, hey Gemini, let's create an API, right? And I'm going to ask it to create an OpenAPI description, and then we're going to take that OpenAPI description and we're going to create a mock for that OpenAPI description. We're going to deploy it to Apigee, and finally we're going to test it. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So I have already prepared a prompt that we can use to ask Gemini to do this. So here's a prompt. We're going to say, Gemini, please create a valid OpenAPI 3.0 description for a personal stock trading API. We're going to ask it to put a CRUD operation for orders, as well as some operations for looking up stock ticker history, as well as stock values and so on. We're also telling Gemini that the server URL should be this URL that I'm having here, which happens to be the URL for my Apigee organization. And here it's just telling, make the base path of the OpenAPI description be this. I'm also saying some other stuff like, for example, for arrays that are defined in the schemas require at least one item. That's important so that when the responses are generated, we don't get empty arrays, right? So that way there's at least one item in the arrays. All right, so let's go ahead and try this out. I'm gonna copy this and we're gonna go to Gemini and start vibing with Gemini. So let's see. We're gonna paste the prompt and let's see what Gemini comes up with. All right, so here's the API description that Gemini created. And you can see it's got the stuff I asked it to do, orders, CRUD operation, as well as some, other stuff like, lookup for finding a stock and looking at history as well. So that's all in there, and the schemas are in there as well. Hopefully these are valid schemas, and we're going to try it out. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to copy this OpenAPI description. I'm going to put it here in the Swagger editor just so we can take a quick look at it. And you can see we got orders, we got market lookup, we got history, we got all the stuff that we wanted on that API. The URL is set correctly to what we ask it to do. So it's looking good. Now let's go and actually create a mock for this OpenAPI description, and then we're going to deploy it to Apigee. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file in here. stocks.yaml. I'm going to paste it in here. And now the command that I'm going to run is the one to actually generate the mock. So I'm going to say, here's the input, which is stocks.yaml, and the output is the stocks.zip. So the YAML is the OpenAPI description that Gemini created. The zip is the API proxy bundle that we can then take and deploy to Apigee. And I'm passing the Vertex project that I want to use, and I'm saying, hey, Vertex is enabled. All right, so let's go ahead and do this. Paste it in here, and you can see this is going to output it to a directory called out, which right now it's empty. So once I run it, we should see a new zip file be created over there. And there you go, the zip file is there. And that's the structure of the API proxy. Next, we're going to go ahead and deploy this API proxy to Apigee. And for that, we're going to use the Apigee CLI. And similarly, we pass the bundle that we just created as the input. And we're saying, hey, create a new proxy called stocks-b1, deploy it to my Apigee organization, my environment, and use this service account. So why am I passing a service account? Because under the hood, when the mock is going to call the Vertex endpoint to generate the content, it needs permissions, and that permission is going to come from this service account. So this service account has to have permission to call the Vertex endpoint. I think that one is a Vertex AI user. I may be wrong, but it's something along those lines. So let's go ahead and run this now. So once I run this, we should see the API being now deployed to my Apigee organization. All right, so revision 1 is being created. So let's go ahead and jump onto my Apigee organization. I'm gonna refresh the page. And you can see it's there, just now as stocks b1, and still being deployed. So once this completes deploying, we can actually go ahead and test it out to see how the new mocked API works. So it takes around a minute or so to get deployed. So while it's deploying, let me just give you a quick overview of what's happening behind the scenes, so you can see a little bit behind the curtain. It's just a few policies, honestly. Not a lot going on in here. Most of the heavy lifting is done in a JavaScript policy called JS mock response. The rest of the stuff is just to assist the JavaScript policy. All right, so it's deployed already. Let's go ahead and start a debug session. Let's do new debug, and let's try it out. So let's go now to the Swagger UI, and let's try some of the operations, and hopefully it will work. And if it doesn't, we'll debug it. So let's try the get all orders. So we'll try it out and set the status to, let's say, executed. And we'll run it, and let's see if the API works. And you can see it actually now you're getting proper responses. And there's a trade for buying Apple that has been executed, another trade for buying Google, another for Microsoft. These are all executed. So how is this working? I didn't manually create any examples or put anything in the OpenAPI description about Apple or Google or Microsoft. This is all the LLM behind the scenes that is generating this response so that it's contextually relevant to the actual request that was made, and also structurally valid per the schema of the response for this API. Let's try a different one. Let's say, what if we let's do a ticker lookup. So I want to find what is the stock tickers for Berkshire Hathaway. Let's see what that is. All right, so look at the response. So again, this is not a real API. This is a mock API, but the responses are so realistic that you could think this is a real API. It says there's two two tickers, BRKA for class A and BRKB for class B. Look at that. This is amazing. Let's try one more. Let's see. What about if we look at history for a stock? So let's say we're gonna try the Google stock, and let's say let's look maybe from the beginning of the year, and it doesn't say what is the interval it's gonna give me, but let's see what happens. Because again, this API was designed by Gemini. I didn't design it. I just told Gemini, you go ahead and create an OpenAPI description. Then we mocked it, and now we're trying it out. So let's say from 2025. Let's look at a few months back. Let's say 0601 to 2025 1101. So just a few months there, and let's see what the response looks like. All right, so you can see the date. It's the response is an array, and looks like it might be. Is it month or is it it looks like there's a few entries each month. 06, 07, 08, 09. Yeah, so again, the API could have been designed differently. Maybe we could have asked Gemini to put a time interval, so we could say daily or weekly or so on. That's not relevant right now. The point is that you can see how realistic this response is. Even the values, they kind of match what the Google stock was around those times. So yeah, that's what I wanted to show you. Now, let me go now to the Apigee UI, and we'll see what actually happened behind the scenes. So let's take a look at the call for when we asked to look up the ticker information for the Berkshire Hathaway stock. So the request that came in, this is what it looked like. Hey, market lookup Berkshire Hathaway, and there's no target. It's not going anywhere. On the way back, the JavaScript policy runs, and within the JavaScript policy, we're making a call to Gemini endpoint, in this case to the Vertex endpoint for the Gemini LLM. And within this JavaScript policy, we're actually, here you can see, we're calling the generate content API for within the Vertex API, the Vertex endpoint. We're calling generate content. Gemini 2.5 flashes the model, and we're passing in the body of the request, we're telling, hey, generate a realistic, meaningful response, and we're giving it some context so that the LLM does a good job of generating a response. We're telling, hey, this was a get on this URL, and here were the query parameters. Right, and from that, the LLM basically came up with a response that kind of matched pretty good, if I should say so, the actual request that we asked. So this could have been a real API if you just looked at this response, but it's actually just a mock. All right, so that's all I have to show you today. I think this is really cool. It can help you if you have, like, for example, a demo that you want to do and you don't want to spend time implementing an API. You just literally, just like I did, in a few minutes, create an OpenAPI description, deploy the mock to Apigee, and you have something running that you could use in a demo. Or let's say you have a team that's creating a user interface, but the backend team has not really implemented the API yet. But if you have an OpenAPI description, you could mock it and then have the UI team be unblocked and actually start building stuff without the backend team providing the full implementation. All right, so my name is Miguel Mendoza, and I hope you learned something new today.